right, we're joined now by Angela Muruli, who is a gender and policy expert from the UN Women. Thank you so much for joining us. Good work that you're doing with GBV there. But you're pointing out the significant role that traditional and religious institutions have to play or contribute to your cause. At what level of involvement are you expecting from these institutions?
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us. I mean, I think it's very important that we have traditional rulers, religious rulers at all levels engaged, whether it's at the grassroots, at the national level, but also at the regional level, because we know at the grassroots, traditional leaders, religious leaders are the people who are closest to communities. They're the ones that shape their, their ideas. But we also know that they have the listening ear of government. They have the listening ear of regional institutions. So we really need them from all levels, at the grassroots, at the national, and indeed within the regional mechanisms as well.
What are the specifics of their involvement? Is it just to enlighten the local populations, or what exactly?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's definitely about community sensitization, because we know that when they say something, their communities respect them. They are the custodians of culture. They're the custodians of scripture, religion, but also it's about the actions that they take. So we have traditional leaders who are opening their palaces as safe spaces for survivors of violence, and we commend that, we encourage that, because it shows that they're taking this seriously. It shows that where maybe security may be a bit more bureaucratic for survivors to get access to services, they have a place where they feel comfortable, a place where they can feel seen in the palaces, for example. But we also have traditional and religious leaders who actually go the extra mile by providing resources to support women's economic empowerment. And we know that that's also very important in terms of economic alleviation and freedom from violence as well.
And is gender violence all about women, violence against women?
No, that's a very good question, and it's something that a lot of practitioners get all the time. The important thing to realize is violence happens to men and women, boys and girls. However, the statistics show that women and girls are disproportionately affected, and that's because of the social norms, the society that we live in, which means that sometimes women, because of how they're perceived, they are more susceptible to violence. And so we're not saying that men and boys don't experience violence. We know it's very serious, but women and girls globally, disproportionately, are affected by violence.
Are we being too careful or overtly confident that traditional rulers are better off to help us drive this narrative? Aren't there some who are also perpetrators of this heinous act against our women? Yes,
I think the thing with gender-based violence, we just have to recognize that we're all affected by a system of patriarchy, one that can make anyone a perpetrator of violence. Right. So it's important for traditional religious leaders to know the power that they have, to know the responsibility that they have, and where we do see instances of violence, no matter who it is, that those are called out and they're also taken very seriously, irrespective of who it is. So it's not to say that people in power can't, perpetrate violence. In fact, we know because they're in power, they're more likely to get away with it. But we also know that traditional religious leaders can have a huge impact in ending violence against women and girls. And when they do take their role seriously and are, are champions, they have very great results, as has been demonstrated here in Nigeria, and for instance in the north, the Sultan, and the pushing for girls to get into education, or even if you go to Cross River State with the abolishment of the money wife practice, which was spearheaded by a traditional leader. So when they're doing well, they're doing very well, but let's not be scared of calling out decision makers who cause violence.
Absolutely, very well said. So how is UN Women helping in practical terms overcome, surmount those challenges, especially the barriers, of societal standards?
Yes, it's again very good question. For us, we are facilitators. When it comes to issues of culture, tradition, they're very sensitive. So we make sure that we engage with traditional leaders. We ask them and communities, okay, what are the changes you want to see We know that what human rights, what are the SDGs say, the goals that we're striving towards, but how can we approach these issues in a culturally sensitive way? So we do that through community dialogues. We do that through engaging our traditional leaders in regional platforms where they can also share practices with other traditional leaders from different countries. It's all about sharing best practices, but also making sure that communities are the ones who are at the forefront of the change that they want to see.
What's the scope of this GBV? You know, because every time you talk about gender-based violence, what comes to mind for a lot of people may be, you know, female genital mutilation, domestic violence, and what have you. But is it larger than that? Tell us some of the real-life stories that you can share with us.
I mean, so I think one of the statistics that we shared earlier is that 1 in 3 women have experienced violence, some form of violence, maybe from an intimate partner or from a family member. So that means if you think about every other 3 women, 1 of them has experienced violence. And as you say, the scope is wide. We have physical violence, we have emotional violence. So sometimes people don't even realize that verbal abuse can constitute a form of gender-based violence. We have economic violence, cyber violence, especially as we saw in the recent elections, the rate at which women politicians were being accused and attacked on social media and online. That's also a form of violence. So the experiences are far-reaching. The scope is extremely wide. It can be very subtle. Sometimes it can be very obvious. I think a lot of women, girls can attest to, you know, inappropriateness in the workplace. So that's the scale and the reach that we have in terms of violence against women and girls and gender-based violence.
Like I said earlier, thank you for what you do, and keep doing your work.